To what extent do you think climate change is integrated into education around the world? What levels of knowledge are kids getting?
Probably not enough. I mean, this is one of the reasons that we've taken on this task of looking at education and education systems and reflecting on what is being taught and how it's being taught, and saying, well, you know, essentially this content and the way that the content is being delivered by teachers is not relevant if it's not integrating climate change and disaster risk in the education in the way that it's imparted. UNICEF began working on a resource kit for planning 4 years ago, together with the Earthchild Institute, my colleague Donna Goodman, within the context of the Interagency Committee of the Decade of Education for Sustainable Development. That is a decade that is being led by UNESCO, and within the context of that decade, we've come together as an interagency group, together with our NGO partners, and decided that it's time that we reflect on the education and the education that is being imparted around the world, and to align it with the relevant content, including the content of climate change and the content of disaster risk. It really is about the philosophy of education and how education reflects what is of relevant to society and to children. So we've developed resources for the education sector. The outcome of integrating this content into education is really to achieve two goals. One, to make education more relevant, and two, to reduce risk and to enact a movement around education around the world to that of one that is quality. Education is antiquated. Is that the way to say the word? It's old. We need to reflect on the education for today's world. What is global citizenship? What are some of the global values that need to be imparted through a local content, for example? How does global content match local content? How is education curriculum being developed? These are some of the questions that are being asked when we integrate this content into the education sector. So the tools and resources that we've developed basically provide step-by-step modules to enable a process of change, to transform education systems and education to that one that really is that of quality. What that is really about starting a process of change. And so the work that we're doing with this content is really about starting transformation through education to really allow for an education that builds resilience in the individual, but at the same time also enables problem solving in the community and reflects on the point that education is cross-sectoral and that cross-sectoral planning for relevant education is necessary. So the toolkit that we developed really does all those things, and I just want to show it to you. It's 10 modules. It can be adapted. It can be adapted in country contexts to start a dialogue between ministers of education and ministers of environment and ministers of agriculture, other ministers, to really think about the role of education in sustainable development, the role of education in climate change adaptation. Adaptation is really about learning. It's nothing new. Humans have been learning from the time that time began. This is why we are where we are today. When I reflect on the city of Doha and I think of the innovation that has allowed this city to exist like it does, it's about human ingenuity, human innovation, comes from education. The day we stop learning is the day we stop to innovate. Learning is really, really the essence of our ability to adapt. So unless we really get this into education content, I think all the goals at this venue are really elusive. So really happy that the resources are out. The UN agencies are, together with partners, are ready to work with ministries of education, ministries of environment, and roll this out. And this is really the plan.